This is a follow-up to the previous video clip I posted here on YouTube. I'm not going to include anyone else's quotations in this one. It's going to be all just my own opinions and arguments for why it makes sense to believe life was created. I think a lot of us would have heard of Richard Dawkins, a famous scientist who's an atheist. For anyone who's not exactly sure what an atheist is somebody who refuses to admit there's a God. You've got your polytheists, they believe there's more than one God or multiple gods. You've got your theists, they choose to think there's just one God. You've got your agnostics, they're not sure either way. And then you've got your atheists, like Richard Dawkins, etc., who don't think there is one. Apparently the ancient Egyptians belonged in the first group. They worshipped around about 2,000 gods, according to this Bible tour I've watched on Zoom. The argument this Richard Dawkins uses against there being no God is that living things don't come into existence by creation. They exist by means of evolution. Life couldn't have got here by being created, according to him, for the simple reason that the even bigger question would have to be brought up as to who made the creator. Well, when you come to think of it, although we've never managed to actually create life, we've managed to create an awful lot of things just during the past 200 years or so. We're a very inventive species, so does it really make sense to believe that the question can't be brought up as to who created us? The argument basically defeats its own object when you come to think about it. You might think, how could human beings have come into existence by means of creation? That doesn't make sense. The even bigger question would have to be brought up as to who created the creator. But what about trains, buses, cars, motorbikes, televisions, video recorders, computers, etc.? The modern world was completely ceased to function the way it does without all these things. But each and every one of them has had to be invented by someone for them to exist. None of them ever came into existence without being designed. In every case there was always a designer, and actually by Dawkins' own line of reasoning the question would have to be brought up as to who created the designer. So by Dawkins' very own line of reasoning, it doesn't make sense to think that life on Earth was uncreated and that God doesn't exist. The very argument he uses to argue against God's existence completely destroys its own object. A television couldn't possibly come into existence without being designed by someone. So does it make any sense at all to assume that living beings, which are far more complicated than any electronic device, can spring forth solely by means of evolution, or natural selection, or whatever you choose to call it? Another argument which is commonly used against theism or creationism is that given the sheer amount of time the Earth has been here, everything that has happened on it was bound to happen sooner or later, with or without the existence of God. Maybe if you're old, say 70 or 80, and you're watching this, it must seem like ages ago when you were 10. Imagine what it would be like if humans could live for 1,000 years. By the time you got near the end of your life, it will seem almost like an eternity, wouldn't it? Well, in my last video I posted it on YouTube, I mentioned that it was believed that the Big Bang, which is what scientists refer to the creation of the universe as, originally started to occur 13.8 billion years ago. To give you an idea of how long ago that is, a million is 1,000 multiplied by 1,000, and a billion is a million multiplied by 1,000. So what do scientists believe the age of the Earth is? They believe it is 4.543 billion years. To give you an idea of just how long that is, if you divide it by the average lifespan of a human being, you get a number slightly higher than 57,506,329. That is just 10,455,566 as to the current population of Britain. So the scientists are certainly saying that this huge ball we live on called the Earth has been around for a staggeringly long time without bouncing just once. From being a primitive lifeless zone all those billions of years ago, it has gradually developed, or so they say, into the wondrous place it is now, teeming with life of all varieties. Its oceans filled with fish, dolphins, whales and sharks and marine animals of all kinds, and its roads full of traffic, its atmosphere carrying aircraft through the clouds, and even satellites and spacecraft being sent off out into space from its surface. Evolutionists believe that all life on Earth today comes from an unimaginably long family tree dating back billions of years. If it hadn't been for one special event occurring in one special moment, or so they believe, the Earth would have just kept on being completely lifeless for the entirety of its existence. This special event is when the first living cell miraculously managed to form itself. This concept is something similar to the Big Bang, which is believed to have resulted in the creation of a universe. This first cell, the original parent of us all, from which every living thing descended, is thought to have resulted from molecules bumping into each other at random in the sea. If this hadn't taken place at the exact moment when it did, or so it is believed, you or I could never have existed. So really, according to that line of reasoning, we're all here by accident. No one created us, and there is no possibility whatsoever of any afterlife of any sort. But is this really the case? In part 2 of this discussion, I'll be including a few quotations and explaining the facts in more detail to show how improbable it is, that everything has become the way it is just accidentally. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this YouTube clip. Just remember that I post these discussions to try to popularise my YouTube channel, although I must stress that it's not just primarily for that reason. So if you're interested in commenting on any of them, please don't hesitate. I'd be delighted by it. I've succeeded in getting very few comments on any of my videos so far, and I'd love to get more. Anyway, bye.